Hi, good afternoon. This is Simon from the Simon Westfall-Kwong Real Estate Group of Keller Williams. Welcome to a Lunch and Learn. Today we have exciting topics that we have Beth and Marcia here. They're going to be talking about college planning. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and Berlin's be also moderating at the same time. So please mute yourself if you're not talking, and we have Q&A at the end. So please take it away, Beth and Marcia.
Let me unmute. Hi, I'm Marcia Hicks. I was a school counselor for 25 years. I'm no longer a school counselor, but I am the director of a program that helps students prep for college, as well as choose their courses, helps them prep for life planning. So I'm the director of the Minority Achievement in Maplewood South Orange School District. I'm also the coordinator of the Counselor Annex, which does all support programming, including college programming for students in the district. So I'm going to let my amazing partner here introduce herself, and then we can get started with our slides.
Thank you, Marcia. Happy to be here. This is Beth Bressler. I am the founder and president of GPS College Consulting. I am a college consultant and I work with students of all abilities, but I specialize in students with learning differences. And I'm located in Short Hills, but I see students virtually all over the country, and I'm excited to be part of this panel.
Yeah, and both Beth and I live in
we both live in Short Hills. Sorry. So anyway, I am going to share my screen, and we are going to talk about, okay, little glitch there, guys.
And we're actually going to first kind of give a broad overview, just kind of starting with the college timeline. And I think.
So we'll go on. Is that good? Okay.
Yes. So we're going to start on the college timeline, and we're really starting in junior year. A question that we have been asked, and Beth and I were asked when even starting putting together this Lunch and Learn, is when do you start talking about college? Well, I mean, the honest truth is, I think you're always kind of prepping for college with your kids, right? Where you choose to move when you're buying a house, you're thinking about where my kids are going to school, you're thinking about their future. As parents, you're always kind of planning for that and planting seeds. But the honest truth is, when kids are really ready to hear it and ready to take part in that process with you in a meaningful way, really starts in the junior year. And in the junior year, no matter what school you're at, no matter which high school you are at this area, and also I have worked in Connecticut, I've worked in Indiana, I've actually worked in Switzerland as a college counselor. No matter where you are, the students, it's all the same in terms of students start to think of it in their junior year, and every school develops kind of a planning timetable. And that usually starts with thinking about the test preparation. Most schools sophomore year run a free PSAT that you can kind of get a practice on, but in your junior year is really when you start planning and thinking about taking that SAT. So there's test preparation that you can start in junior year, the beginning of junior year, even towards the end of sophomore year. As school counselors, we always tell people we kind of have that overall threshold of the March SATs in terms of taking the test in your junior year. And the reason why you hear that from most is because, sorry, I'm on a bell schedule in a school. The reason why you hear that March is because if you really look, if a kid's on a typical math program, their Algebra 2, they really finish what is necessary to do well in the SATs. They finish that prep work by March. And so if you have a kid that's ahead in math, you can certainly move up that timetable. But typically we are talking about a March deadline in terms of taking your SATs. And that really goes off of the due diligence and understanding the research in terms of test taking and math. So we get kids prepped for talking about taking tests and then researching colleges. I'm about to start that with a bunch of juniors in my program. It's the most fun part because I say just explore everything. And we really look at best fits, not even thinking about what it costs, not thinking about where you're afraid to go. We just really kind of start the college processes looking at beautiful campuses, city campuses, rural. We start the whole search. And then from there, we develop a college list really towards the end of junior year, saying these are the schools that you're going to start visiting over spring break or over the summer. So we try to narrow down that list for our juniors. And we start the whole process of, by that time, they meet with their school counselor and they really talk to them about getting your recommendations. So we ask them to request the recommendations by the end of their junior year. But I would say that process of knowing which teacher is right for you starts in September. I always say, like, you know, you always want to make friends and network because in a school, you're going to be asking for people for recommendations. So really getting that junior to understand, like, who did you connect with? Who did you do well in the class with? Who's going to write that recommendation is a conversation that we have. And I make sure that all of my juniors have asked them in March and get a confirmation email that they're writing that recommendation by the time May hits. So I really think that's important. One piece that's not on this timeline that Beth and I didn't really talk about, but it's a big piece of my junior year, and I'm starting with students in January, is that college essay. I get them starting their ideas of what they think they might write about or what a college essay looks like. I start that in January. Just having those conversations. And then I really do essay writing workshops and really get them narrowing down the topics and maybe even putting together kind of a guideline of what their essay would look like. I actually do that with most students in March because Common App, I mean, they've had those same questions for years. This year they added on a new question, but you know, it's open in the spring and they can see all those questions and start exploring it with their teachers and with their parents and people in their lives that they really can help them decide what the topic is going to be. So that's a brief overview of junior year. We're trying to keep it brief because there's all sorts of different people on this call. So Beth and I really want to be able to answer questions, but that's your junior year. And then it moves into the summer. And so Beth and I are both going to talk a little bit about summer planning.
Yes, I just had one, Marcia, that was a great overview. I just had one point to make with visiting colleges and developing a college list. I know we come from different views. Not views, we come from different sides. I am an educational consultant independent and Marcia is in a school district, but so I tend to have parents come to me earlier, summer before junior year and even the beginning of junior year. So I know a lot of students are anxious to start researching and visiting colleges early, maybe over teachers convention or a break during the fall. But I am in total agreement with Marcia as far as the test prep and the test taking goes. A lot of parents think, they have to, your student has to test in September or October, but I'm a firm believer of waiting until you've got that math under your belt. And also a firm believer that a student should start out strong in school. September and October, if you're in AP classes or any classes, to start out strong and not worry so much about the testing in the fall. So I like that, deferring to the spring. So anyway, there's a lot to do during the summer. Marcia?
Yes, there's a lot. So the summer, I probably should have started in the junior year because really, to apply to a lot of summer programs, you've really got to start applying in January. So it starts, it wasn't always this way over my tenure of being
taking a quick bath.
Um,
Okay.
oh, Heather. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you had a question. But it has started much, much earlier. And so really in January, and actually I've started now sending some of my parents all of the summer programs. In fact, like I was sitting here looking through one myself for my children, because I have a child applying to college right now and another child in high school. So there are so many summer options out there. It's amazing, from going overseas to volunteer work to working in your community to having a summer job. You really just have to Google anything and I'm amazed at how many summer opportunities there are.
And I think it's really important for a student to do something meaningful during the summer, something that the student is passionate about, whether it's, you know, community service or whether it's research or working or whatever it is. I don't like the idea of building, you know, I said develop activities list and resume, but I don't like the idea of curating a resume to fit a specific college that a student may have in mind. You know, do what you love, do what you're passionate about, and it will show through in your college application.
Right. That's a really good point, Beth, because I mean, all of us get really anxious about the college process and we want the very best for our children. At least we want all of the best options for our children. And I think the hardest thing as a parent, as well as working as a school counselor and supporting kids, is letting them take a direction and maybe learn over the summer that I hate something, or learn over summer, you know, even though you knew it in your heart, like, I know you're going to hate this job, but letting them kind of walk this path and find out what they hate, what they love, because then when it comes to interviewing time with the college, like, those kids, like, they jump off the paper in a resume and they jump off the paper in an interview because it's real, it's authentic, the experiences they had and the mistakes that they learned from. I'm sure all of us on this call have the most memorable things that we've tried and failed at and learned so much about ourselves from that. That really helps when you're pulling together the college process, because that kid really expands in the summer. And this is the time to expand. The summer is the time to explore. Take some 2-week summer things, maybe throw a couple of different things in there. I did that with my daughter. She loves political science. And so we did ACLU, but she wanted to travel. So, you know, you have to sprinkle in different things, meeting the needs of your kids. If you're able to pay for those programs, it's wonderful, but they're just as meaningful programs that are free and local in your area that give really rich experiences to all children.
And another thing that I just want to touch on is that since I work with students with learning differences, many of them don't even know if they're college ready. So it's not so much a talk of where's the best school that I want to apply to, where's the right fit. It's also, will I be ready to go away? Can I live on my own? Can I do the work? So for many of the students that I work with, I recommend a bridge program, some type of college program that will help them with readiness for school. So, and that actually can be for any student.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, we can do that after end of senior story. I could tell a couple of different students, different paths and where it brought them, but we can do that after Beth does senior year.
So summer before senior year, am I still on mute? Sorry. I think Marcia touched upon this with the application and deadlines. I think it's a great idea to get started even before summer. But a lot of kids have the downtime during the summer to take a look at the application, put in the schools that they're interested in, and see what deadlines there are. And then really decide, do I want to apply early decision, regular decision? We'll get to that after. And it's a great time to start applications for the same reason that there is downtime. And I like to brainstorm help my students brainstorm and start drafting the personal statements and supplemental essays. And we usually do that before the summer of senior year. But Marcia, now that you mentioned that you do it at the end of junior year, I may start incorporating that, because I think that's the earlier, the better. The last thing you want to be doing is proofreading an essay on Halloween when early decision is due November 1st. So, but we'll go to all that.
No, I agree. It's so I try to get all of my students in my program to have everything done by August 15th. So I tell them, even the Common App, the general questions of the Common App, that you could go in there and fill that out, get all of that stuff done, even if you don't have your firm college list, and have that college essay really well set. We tried to begin college essays earlier, but they really don't have the depth of experience. Like, sometimes what they write about really happens in that junior year. Kids, their developmental process and what they experience goes so far in that junior year. You just watch them grow up so much. So really, it's that end of that junior year that they have these amazing essays and are able to give like reflection in the essays that you really want them to.
Okay, so now we are going to senior year, which is the big year. So this is where students would take ACTs or SATs if they haven't already completed them. They would probably sit for an exam either September or October before the applications go in. And I said finish essay and supplements, but just like Marcia, I want my kids done before then. And then the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid, opens up on October 1st. So I encourage my families to apply right away, because the earlier the better. And then November is when early decision applications are due, November 1st, usually. And then and we'll talk about that after. And then November to December would be when early action and the remainder of applications are due, although many of them are due in January or February, but I encourage my students to submit as early as possible, so you do not have to worry about it. And then when the decisions start rolling in, a decision on a commitment to the school does not have to be made until May 1st, and that's National College Decision Day. And we are going to talk a little bit about the different types of application processes. Marcia.
Okay, so everybody pretty much probably knows regular decision, right? And when I started as a school counselor, everybody pretty much applied regular decision. And those are those typical deadlines. Probably, I don't know how old everybody is on this call, but you applied in a regular timeline where it was spring, or it was rolling. The only person that I knew that really applied super early when I was young was my husband. He applied, I think, in October to UConn and got in. And I was like, what? People did that back then? So the regular timeline that you're thinking of for colleges, and there's nothing wrong with applying regular decision. Now there's a lot of anxiety where everybody thinks like, I've got to apply early. But your child's got to know that that's the school that they want to go to. So early decision is binding. Now you have a lot of early decision 1 and early decision 2 deadlines. So early decision 2 will be coming up, like it's a November 15th or a December 15th deadline. Like my daughter has a couple early decision 2s. So they've kind of split it now into early decision 1, early decision 2, but those are binding. And by that, I mean your school counselor, as well as you as a parent, and your child signs a form saying that if your child gets in, they're going there. They're going to that school. So it's really important, barring any type of real financial need or something, that happens, you are saying that you're going to that school. So I encourage students to be, this is that dream school that you love, that you wanted to get into. There, studies do show that some schools really pull from that early pool because they know that those are the real passionate kids that want to go there. So some kids do it as like, well, I know I really want to go there. It's easy. It's a better chance for me to get in an early decision. So they bank on that. Early action. Beth, do you want to go over early action?
Yeah. I just want to add early decision. It's so, well, I think you said this already, that it's so important to be sure that this is where you want to go. And it's okay if you don't know where you want to go. It's okay not to apply early decision. Most students do not apply early decision. We're just used to, what goes on in our immediate area, where most kids and families are talking about, oh my God, where are you applying early decision? But honestly, it is not the norm throughout the country. So early action is similar to early decision in the sense that a student would apply early. Usually the deadlines, I think, are November to December, and then the student would get a decision from the college much earlier than regular decision. And this is not binding. So the student is not signing anything. It's non-binding. I encourage all my students, if they have any schools on that list that are early action, just do it. Just apply. Get that application out as early as you can. And then you get a decision and you can sit with that decision. So,
one piece I probably just made me think about that really could start in junior year, if you know, but can go all the way to senior year, is the influence now of social media when you're applying to schools. So they do look at your social media and they look at how much you've liked their programs, how much you're interacting with the school through technology. So before, you'd apply, you'd visit the school, but now there's so much more you could be doing for a school that's early decision and you love. You can be, obviously you get on their Instagram, you could be liking different posts, you could be saying like, that was a really great experience. So there are lots of things virtually that they like to see kids engaged in. This year, for the first time, which I thought was funny, I had so many of my students that would just be talking, but I'm like, what are you doing? What is this thing I hear playing? They're like, oh, I'm on a virtual tour. It's like my third, because I wanted to log that, make sure the school saw that I went on 3 virtual tours. I mean, they're not even paying attention, but they're so savvy that they know the school is logging. And I had one kid, he's like doing 2 at one time. Like he's got like a laptop here and a Chromebook here. And he's like, no, I got to log that they see me. So I'm doing 2 at one time. So, if you have a child and it's coming up, that social media presence, that online presence has become a definite piece of the college process.
and also to add to that, Marcia, any emails that a student gets from a particular school that the student's interested in, make sure you open those emails, because the colleges track that. Even if you're applying early action, regular decision, the colleges want to know that you are interested in this school. When you apply, if you apply to a school you've never seen, that you've never gone on social media or any tours, I mean, that's not showing demonstrated interest. So you want to make sure that you open all those emails. And I know kids don't check their emails, but you should.
No. Yeah, it's so funny, like how like we build in here, like, okay, everybody sit down, okay, everybody take out your phone, okay, everybody open those emails, all right, now go to class, just because I'm trying to get them to do what's necessary for applying to college. And they're lucky because they do it all with a group of students, so they have like a support group of like, did you see Mrs. Hicks's email? But you at home supporting your child, like obviously also too, if I was speaking to students, which I'm not, but you can remind them an appropriate email is very important. A lot of students just use their email, and their email isn't always the best email to use because they have funny little things. But this is really like applying for your top job, right? Like what you guys would do to apply for a top job, putting that resume together, putting yourself out there. That is what this student should be doing. And a college admissions person, like my friend at NYU, it's like, she's like, well, I'm giving each application an average of 8 minutes, 7 to 8 minutes. That's not a lot of time to jump off a piece of paper, right? 7 to 8 minutes. You think of all the time that you put into it, your child put into their whole life in a folder. But they've got to jump off that page in 7 to 8 minutes. And that's a hard thing to do. It's a stressful time. And so Beth and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Our kind of theory of it, in terms of college, is really staying centered as a family, staying centered as your child's key person and the people around them. Beth and I were talking this morning about so many silly things that people say to kids that just really stresses kids out, in particular in this area that we live in. So there are over 7,000 colleges and universities. There is going to be one that's for your child, and it does not have to be the one that everybody in their school applies to. So if you're really staying centered as a family and finding the best fit for your child, they're going to excel with that. But if you have the pressure on everybody else is applying here, so I want my kid to apply to get in, that isn't always the best strategy. And it certainly makes for a lot of stress for a lot of students. So my theory always is to stay centered and make sure that you know that your end goal is to have a happy, productive child that gets a good job and does well. So try to make college less of a talking point with people around you and more of, what you've always dreamed about when you had these kids, or when you brought these kids into your life, what you wanted for them, and really bring that through this whole process.
And that was great, Marcia. And that's exactly what we were talking about this morning. And it's just so important to remember. And I think because I work with the population of students with learning differences, it's a different conversation at times, but it should be the same conversation across the board. Where will my child thrive? It's not necessarily the highest ranked school on US News. It's not the school where every top 10, the 10% of your class is applying to. You may go to Harvard and hate it when you're on campus and you don't feel like you could be part of this class. I mean, that's just an example. But for me, it's where will the student thrive academically, socially, and emotionally, because that's really everything. And I know we talked about the college visits, and it hasn't been easy during COVID. Kids weren't able to do a college visit, and we're very fortunate in this area because there's so many colleges within driving distance that you could visit. But I stress to my kids, go visit the college. There is nothing like standing on campus and feeling the vibe and seeing the students. I have a whole list of my tips, my tips for visiting, but take a look at the kids. Are they wearing the sweatshirts? Are they walking alone? Are they walking in groups? What are they doing during lunch? Are they sitting together doing work? Are they alone on their phones and their laptops? I mean, this is all part of the experience because your kids are going to live there for 4 years. And this is going to change their lives, dramatically. So you want to make sure that that fit is there. And it's usually not the highest ranking college or school.
So I know we had questions because I wasn't paying total attention to.
Yeah, I was. Thank you guys so much. I can't even tell you how amazing this has been so far. You are both so well-spoken and so knowledgeable. And just one comment before we go to the questions. I think to Marcia's first point, when she first started talking, you choose where you want to live, where you want to buy a house, where you want to raise your kids, because a lot of the times for a certain school district, and that school district may be, highly thought of for the reasons that are organic to your family. And that they prepare your kids hand in hand with you at home for this moment in time to go off to college. But to Beth's point, you don't choose colleges for the same reason that you choose where you want to live for your child's grade school. Now your child is an individual and they're going off on their own, even if they're staying at home and going to school every day on their own. The right fit for your child is not necessarily the right rank in terms of exactly to Beth's point. So I thought that was really, really great. I see that you have resources up there too, which is awesome. And somebody asked if this was going to be recorded. It is recorded, and we will send it out. And these links will all be, maybe you guys can, after we speak about two questions, maybe you guys can go back and tell us what each of these resources is and why you use them.
Carolyn, if you can drop these into the chat, that might be a good idea. Also, for some reason, I don't have access to the chat while I'm on this.
Sure, I can absolutely do
I
that.
mean, or since it's recording,
Yeah,
everyone can see it, but I think I'll stop sharing for the moment and then we can go back.
I see.
Oh, sorry.
Or
No,
should
go
I
ahead,
keep it,
Marcia.
Should I keep it
Oh,
on?
I was just gonna say one piece that I was thinking of, like, you know, if you walked into a store, you wouldn't necessarily buy a $70,000 sweatshirt that didn't fit your kid, no matter what the brand, right? Let's say it's Supreme, let's say it's, you know, I don't know. It's got everything that it needs. Kanye West wore it, your kids like, like Beyonce sewed it together. Regardless, if it was like big and didn't fit in, it was the middle of winter and it was really thin, you wouldn't say like, this is worth $70,000 because my kid wants it, right? Like you're like, I don't care if everybody
Great
else is
point.
wearing it. I need you warm. It needs to fit. And so that's the same thing with like, think about with colleges. I'm like, it's also a lot of money to not have the right fit. So it's so important that your child's going to be happy there, but it's also important to know if they're not, you can transfer. And so just a little bit of those stories too, where people are always like 4-year, top tier. I had a group of students and I had my friends come in and talk to them, and everybody's experience at college is everybody's personal experience, right? It's a single story. Your friends with their kids, that's a single story. So, you know, they were telling these kids where they had to go, and they were like, Marcia, you've got kids going to 2-year colleges. How could you even let that happen? That's ridiculous. And I really kind of felt bad about it. I was like, no, this is a good choice for this kid at 2-year college. So my student that went to the 2-year college went to Union County. He graduated. He got you know, an associate's degree, but they helped him transfer to Columbia University, where he got a full ride, not only for his last 2 years, but they paid for him for his master's program. And so now he's a big wig on Wall Street. And so he comes back to talk to my students about like me honoring where he was at and honoring the fact that it wasn't that he wasn't super smart. He had like 6 other siblings also. And he's like, and my parents were like gauging, okay, this one's got to finish college, then you can go. But how so many people made him feel about going to a 2-year college, that he had ruined his life, where really he had enhanced it in a way that was meaningful to his family, meaningful to him, and the people around him.
Marcia, that's a beautiful story. And to add onto that, many of the students I work with are not ready to go to a 4-year college or even a 2-year college. And you know what? That's okay. And I tell my families, I have said this for years because I have a son with learning differences, that life is not a straight line. Whether you graduate, whether you go to college or not, it's up to you. And if it might not be the right fit, it might be a vocational program, or it might be a 2-year college. And then just as Marcia said, going on to a 4-year college. But it's so important to make sure that you as a student are ready to go before you make that leap. So
my last little story before questions, sorry.
Should we go to the questions?
Yeah, sure. I don't know if you guys can see them, but and standardized testing can be a whole other full hour, full week, full whatever.
It could be a week. Yeah.
Somebody asked, I never took the SAT. Can you do multiple rounds of the SAT after your first take?
Oh yeah. Do you want to answer, Beth? Or you want me to?
Oh, You know what? I'll answer and then you can add on because I know we always we compliment each other very well.
Right.
So yes, you can definitely take the SAT more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times. Many schools, about 1,800 schools this year, have gone test optional, and that doesn't mean that you don't have to submit your test. The reason they did this was because of the pandemic and access to testing. There is so much question. I was just at a conference last week and there were numerous seminars over, do you submit, do you not submit, what's the advantage of submitting, what if my student has 200 points less than the 50 percentile. So it's on a case-by-case basis. I'm working with some students who haven't taken the SAT, that have too much anxiety to take the SAT and won't. And you know what? There are many, many schools out there that were test optional even before the pandemic. So my advice is that if you can sit for the test and take the test and this year, and it's not going to cause you to have a mental breakdown or extreme anxiety, then sit for the test.
Yeah.
Things will be different next year though. For classes.
That's my advice too, to sit for the test, but also the truth is, like College Board, if you look at the data behind it, I mean, kids after 3 times don't usually change their score, right? Like, and that's been data over all, like, I don't know, I've looked at for like 30, 35 years. So, the parents that are like, no, take it a 4th time, take it a 5th time, it doesn't yield anything different. So I would say, certainly you could take it once, twice, rarely, sometimes I have kids take it 3 times, but, and really because of the super score, so you can take the highest here, the highest math or the highest verbal. But other than that, I wouldn't push just constantly taking it unless there's some extreme situation where something has changed.
I would also add, sometimes people forget about the subject matter tests. So if you are a decent test taker, but you are really good at math, not so great at the language arts, and you love math, you like math, if they still have subject matter tests, if you're really good at geometry, if you love physics. I have to laugh at
Carolyn,
that.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but they did away with the subject matter.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I'm so happy that you're telling me this. I tell everybody.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but they no longer, that was done away with.
So great to know. Thank you for telling me that.
My pleasure.
Our next question is regarding summer jobs.
Simon was trying to say something. Simon,
Beth and Marcia, I just to follow up on that question. So let's say your child have anxiety and doesn't feel comfortable taking the test, and is there something else you need to do on your application to make your application stand up, because now you're missing the testing?
Okay.
So right now too. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so it depends. Well, yes, your schools are looking at your application holistically. They're not just looking at an SAT score. They are not just looking at an ACT score. They are not just looking at your grades. They are looking at you, the entire part of you. I like to call the application a mosaic. Okay, so you've got your classes, the class rigor. Class rigor is very important. Whether you get A's in all CPA classes or AP classes, there's a big difference. Looking at the class rigor, they're looking at your extracurriculars, they're looking at your character, they're looking at your essays, they're looking at everything. So it's not just your test. However, it depends what school you're applying to. If you're applying to a highly selective school, I would recommend sitting for SAT or ACT. It depends what school,
It depends on the child's anxiety. So if it's, your child, like when I say that, like whether you want to know them or not, or want to say what the truth is, your child. And if you think that anxiety is that it's not going to yield a score that's going to make a difference, and the anxiety that it does is not worth it, then I think you make the choice for the child not to take the test. And then you look at schools accordingly, right? So much of what we do is we think about all the schools that we just know in our head, or that we knew from growing up in our single story of education, or from our friends around us. But like I say, there's over 7,000 colleges and universities in this country. There is a school for your child that will honor where they're at and will help them grow into the person that you want them to be. You just have to be comfortable with that search and that process.
And getting back, Simon, to the testing, I just wanted to add that there are many, many schools that were test optional way before the pandemic. And the students that I work with, the students that applied this year, I don't think any student submitted a test score, and I already have kids that got accepted.
Now, so I'll counter that a little bit. So we did see with some competitive schools that said that suddenly became test optional, that when we compared this year who got in over the pandemic, the majority of the students that got in did submit test scores. So we felt like that was an unfair hit on a lot of kids, in the school counseling genre, and people that support kids. Like they said, don't worry, test optional, test optional. But then they accepted the kids that submitted, because the kids that submitted had those higher test scores that they wanted, so they felt comfortable submitting. So it's
about, like Marcia, it's a balancing act. It depends on your child, and it depends on the school. So
I like this next question. What are the other types of summer jobs that will bring significant impact to the kids, even though it's not a good experience? So it's an interesting question, but more generally, what types of experiences and jobs bring the
I've
most?
got a good one for that, because I'll tell you, I say any job, because years ago, there was this story in Milburn. I don't know who it was, but it was maybe 10, 12 years ago. And I don't remember the student's name, but it was such the buzz because the student got into, I can't remember if it was Brown or a top tier school. So the student had worked at Dunkin' Donuts and wrote this amazing essay about starting at Dunkin' Donuts and not understanding what anybody was saying. Like really coming from it was like, oh, I had never heard somebody with an accent, right? Like, so I struggled to understand. And then becoming super close with the person that owned Dunkin' Donuts, like hated his time working there, but then made kind of connections with people there, and how much that child grew as a person from this crappy job where they made no money and they couldn't believe that their parents made them work there throughout the year. So, any experience can turn into something that's unexpected. I think that's the great thing about adolescence, and that's the great thing about putting them into places. You never know what's going to touch them in what way, and all you can do is just give them opportunities, and I'm always amazed at where they go with them.
So Marcia and Beth, so my next question is that, yes, we know that, the process starting as a junior year, right? But what do you do anything when you get to freshman year or sophomore year? Is there a certain checklist that you need to have? Or is this certain thing, hey, you know what, you need to make sure you do this, and so you can ready for next year, and then in junior, you'll be like, ready to go to apply. I know there's no set, guidelines.
No, there are things that you can do, and right. So I'm sure Beth works with people that start like in freshman year, and there's a lot of people that come into me and they're like, I want my kid never to go to Stanford, so I need to follow what they need to go into Stanford. So they ask, this is when I was like that, like plan it out, like every AP course they could possibly take in the school and every advanced course. So they charted that kid's life. He didn't get into Stanford, he got into good schools, but they charted their life so that they would have the opportunity to get in those schools. So there's always things you could do, but I talk about and Simon, my daughter, Maya, I took her to see colleges starting in sophomore year. Like, we went to UCLA, we went to, San Diego, we went to UConn. I could not believe all of this time. Like, I'm a school counselor, right? Like, I spent showing her all these schools. And then like we get to the end of junior year, she's like, wait, what was that school? Wait, we flew to California? Wait, what one was that? I was like, so she only remembered the ones in that junior year. She didn't really remember in the meaningful way I wanted her to, because the person who that child was in freshman year is not the girl that I have now that was in junior. So the maturity is all different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so funny because my daughter just graduated from Vanderbilt, and she had gone to visit maybe one or two schools sophomore year, and she's like, I've got to go back. I have no idea what those schools were like. So,
right.
But to your question, Simon, I agree with Marcia that it does start earlier than junior year. It's not the first time that you think about, oh, I need to apply to college. It starts in the sense, what do I want my high school career to be? What do I want to do in high school? What am I passionate about? And let me use this time to find it. Am I a soccer player? I have one student that was a soccer player since she was 3 years old, played soccer in high school, and then freshman year discovered debate. And that became her world. So I really think it's a time for exploration, and it's a time also to hone in on what you really love, because the colleges don't want to see 15 different activities of just being a member. Not that they don't, but I stress that it's more important to have less and to have leadership. What were you passionate about? And if you are passionate about it, you will be, it will show through on your resume. So, on your application. I had a student come to me summer before junior year that I'm working with right now, and he stellar student, straight A's, but no extracurriculars whatsoever, none. And I asked him what he's interested in, and he said video games, and he couldn't really expand on what he wanted to do outside of academics. And I wish he had come to me freshman year at some point, or even sophomore year, so I could have guided him to different things, different community service, different activities, anything, different work experiences, so we'll see where he ends up.
Can I ask, while we go to the next question, could everybody that's on here, if you feel comfortable, well, I think you should, just put in the chat like one word, a wish that you had for your child, like just one word. You don't have to do a sentence, just like one wish that you have for your child. But we could still take the question while people are, we can go on to the next question while people are, I would like to see that. Just a little activity.
And then Marcia and Beth, I have so many questions because I have kids getting ready to be there. So as you mentioned, there's 7,000 school out there. There's all different type of school, and there's Wawa school, there's Ivy League school, there's smaller school. How do you find those school? And obviously your child's gonna be the one say, hey, I want to go to a small school. Does the guidance counselor help you to guide you through what are the school to look at? Where do you start?
So school counselors really help guide you, but like I always like to say, it's there's one school counselor for 200, for 100 and some odd kids, right? So where you have your baby that you're taking care of, I feel like that's your responsibility as an educated parent to do the best you can, because the school counselor has so many, right? So you kind of get this form-fitted one of kind of leading you to the sites. I love collegeboard.com, but I also love Naviance, which Milburn has. We use SCORE, but I like SCORE as well. So there are these programs that every school has that you and your kid, and it's actually, I think it's kind of fun. Like you sit in there and you just start answering questions like, I like this, I don't like that. Like Naviance's general career thing is maybe, I think it's like 84 questions, but it saves it and you can do it over time. So you and your child could do it over 3 months. What it then does is generate a list of classes that you could take, right? That connect to those, your personality and those majors. And then it connects colleges that have those majors. So it does like a start look. And then you tell your kid, hey, you know what? Just look at 2 of these schools. And from that, you can come to the counselor and say, they really liked this about, you know, these 5 things about the schools. Then the counselor can kind of help lead you down it. A thing I love that Naviance also does is like, if you liked University of Massachusetts, these kids also loved this school. And then it gives you a list of 10 other schools. Like, so all your kid has to do is, I like this one school, and you can start in the area. You could just go see Rutgers and say like, your kid could say, I hate Rutgers. Okay, but here are all the schools that are like Rutgers that you have on your list. So maybe we should move those off. Your kid can go see Ryder and be like, well, what do you like? Well, I like the small campus and the, you know, how everything's clean and nice and new. Okay, now you're building all of this information to make a decision, right? So sometimes I say, hey guys, it's like dating. You've dated a bunch of different people. You took the different pieces you liked, and now you're like, I'm looking for the whole package. That's what you're doing, right? You're taking the pieces that you know you like. Everything's not going to be perfect, but you take these pieces and you say, this is what I'm willing to live with. This is the direction I think we should go in. And a lot of times your child maybe wants to go in a different direction that you do. But you'll have to find a balance with that. But I think starting now, just talking about what you love and you don't like, visiting colleges on a fun note, you know, like, hey, let's just go have lunch near Rutgers. That's what we did. We just had lunch in the area, you know. Let's go on the campus store and buy something of New Brunswick, you know, and the difference between New Brunswick and Newark campus of Rutgers. Just in that, your kid can see a lot. So there's a lot of things you can do to start just exploring in a really casual way. Sorry, that was a long answer.
Hey, Beth, you know, you mentioned about gap year. You want to talk about it a little bit, about gap year?
Well, you know what, I saw in the chat that someone said, I wish my child didn't want to take a gap year. Gap years are great. There are so many different gap years. Gap years are not staying at home and, you know, or it might be staying at home and taking classes at community college. I mean, there's international travel. There's service like AmeriCorps, or there's go on to the Gap Year Association website and you will find a slew of different programs. And I just went to a conference a couple of weeks ago on gap years, and students that are unsure whether they want to go right to college that do take a gap year definitely have a leg up when they get to school. They've matured. They oftentimes it incorporates schoolwork, maybe a class or 2, and they're just in a very different position than they were as a college graduate, but I mean a high school graduate. But there's so many opportunities. I wish I took a gap year. It just wasn't. We didn't take gap years back then. You know,
these gap year programs are wow. They're amazing.
Right, and no one forgets it. No one forgets about their gap year. It becomes part of your fabric, who you are. And like I said, I know I keep repeating myself, life is not a straight line and there is no time limit. Whether you graduate from college at 22 or 23, it really doesn't make a difference.
So,
you know,
well, most people don't graduate in 4 years anymore.
Right. Most people graduate within 6 years. It's very different, 5 or 6 years, but it's very different in this community when, you know, 4 years.
And then my last question is that, you know, for someone who has a learning differences, do they need to do anything differently?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, it's first of all, is learning differences can be so broad, or do they have an IEP? Do they have a 504 or are they in a special ed school? Because that IEP and 504 doesn't carry over to college. You will need documentation, whether from a therapist or neuropsych exam for college. But depending on the student, like I have some students that, and this could be like another seminar in and of itself, another webinar, but there are schools that offer, every school by law has to offer accommodations. If you have ADHD, if you have a learning difference, if you have ADHD, ASD, have to offer accommodations. And that can be anywhere from get extra time on tests, note taking, preferential dorm. I mean, it goes on and on depending on the college. But then there are other schools that offer a higher level where it might be a fee-based program, where and many of my students go to these schools where, you've gotten all this support in high school. How are you going right to college without any of the supports that you had? So these programs might include academic coaching, 2-3 times a week to work on executive function, to break down the syllabus, to work on social skills, to work on, they're all very different in nature. And that's where I come in because I know the nuances of each of the programs. So depending on the student, I can't say, yes, you need to do something different. It all depends on the student. I mean, I'm working with one student who has ADHD that wants to go to a Big Ten school. So we're working on, finding the right school that has the right supports for him, but he doesn't rise to the level of needing, a tutor 3 days a week. And if he does, we'll figure it out. I hope that answered. Did that answer the question?
But the overall of the process, like you want to start the process the same, but I do think you need to get more into the nitty gritty of what the schools offer and not what they say they offer. Really, I think in those particular areas, you do need a Beth, or you do need to call the school and talk directly and get real answers from their special services department, not what an admissions person say, because they come here every day, they're like, of course we offer support.
Every tour that I go on, because I tour a lot of schools now, I go on the regular admissions tour, and then I meet with the director of the Office of Special Services, or whatever the program may be. Like in Fairleigh Dickinson, it's a learning, I'm probably going to get this wrong. So the Learning Excellence Program, or whatever it may be. And I meet with the director. I have a whole host of questions I'm asking and I give these questions to my parents, because it's one thing to make the phone call, and the phone call is very important. But if a student applies and is going to go to this school that has the extra support that is fee-based, you want to know, where is it located? Maybe the school has it located really far away, and the student doesn't want anyone to know that he's going for help. So there's a lot that goes into that. So, but Marcia, absolutely, it doesn't stop with just admissions.
Yeah.
This has been so informative. You guys are amazing. So if someone wants to get in touch with you guys, how do they get in touch with you?
I'm going to drop my information into the chat if I can.
While you guys doing that, so with all the people who's listening, that we are gonna send a recording out to people who are registered as well. What is the one thing that that they should start thinking about doing with their kids?
Are you talking about for their college process?
Yeah, the one thing that you should start doing.
Well, I feel like that one word that I asked you to look at, like I was seeing, like somebody said joy, and I think you should start from your one wish from your child, and sit down and say, like maybe you might say, like, I've always wanted you to have joy and happiness in your life. And the best way of getting there is making sure that you can take care of yourself, right? Like start the conversation from that point of where you wanted them in their life. And like we said to our daughter, we're like, we want you to be happy, but being happy is also being able to take care of yourself and do all the things that you want to do and be independent. And so the best way to get there in this society is really for us to set you up to be able to look at colleges. So let's start there. And here's where I went to college. Would you like to visit where we started where we went to college at UConn? Say let's go back for a visit there. So it was fun, nostalgic for us, maybe boring for her, but it was the start of seeing all of the fun things for us connected to college. And, she saw that our hope for her is to be happy and independent. And this is the road to get there for anybody.
Beth, how about you?
What'd you say?
I say, Beth, what about you? Where's the
What
one?
about me? Hold on, I'm still doing this because I want to make sure everyone can get in touch.
Oh yeah, you're still, I haven't got
I'm so sorry. I thought I had it. What about me? Very similar to Marcia. I love everything that you've said. I would say focus on what you love. Do your best. Wait, I'm sorry, Simon, can you repeat?
Sure.
What?
I said one thing, if there's one thing that they should do right now, what would that be?
The one thing that they should do, just focus on that one word, happiness, one thing. Find the right place where your child will be happy and thrive. Because if you're not happy and you don't thrive, you will not be successful and you will not finish those 4 years. So I think that's of utmost important. And also listen to your child. This is their education, not your education. Listen to where they want to be. You may want them at a Big 10 school or at a small liberal arts college. Well, maybe they don't want to be. And of course, it's got to be within your financial parameters, geographical parameters, but let them drive the process. I've had so many parents when I want to have a meeting with the student and the parents are on the call also. And I'm like, no, I want to meet with Johnny. This is Johnny's education. Of course, you're paying for everything, but what does Johnny want? And you better be, but what does Johnny want? I think that's the most important. Listen to your child. And this is a year of so much anxiety and it's just wrought with anxiety that just listen to them and take a step back. And not every dinner conversation has to be about where you're going to school. What you're doing to make your resume look better. So, and
Johnny, just one thing about Johnny too, think carefully. If Johnny can't start the process and do some of this independently, Johnny's going to have a tough time at college.
Exactly. If you're filling out Johnny's application, there's a problem.
In College Board, I don't know if Johnny's going to make it at a big college, right? Because there's a lot to that processing. So if you're doing it all for your kid now, think about what that means in college, because that kid's going to have a rough time.
You can't fit everybody in those small dorm rooms. They're too small. They're just too small.
Well, I saw some big ones recently.
I mean, my son's dorm room must be 6 by 6. It is literally you could go like this and hit.
Yeah, he can't be able to fit the essay writer, the college counselor,
right,
the
exactly.
nutritionist, the personal trainer. They're all not going to fit in there.
Exactly. I want to go to that school. So
Marcia,
this is wonderful doing this with you, and I hope we can have more of these discussions in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
And feel free, and thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's so informative. We can talk about this hours and hours.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll probably do another one that's a little bit different topics. But thank you so much. You guys have been amazing. So here we at the Simon Westfall-Kwong Real Estate Group, we would love to bring you other topics. So you have something you want us to talk about, please email us at info@swkrealestate.com. We'll be happy to provide lunch and learn to everyone. Again, thank you so much for your time, everybody. And you guys have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.